1883, 135 years to the point of no return. In 1883, Sir Francis Galton proposed a method to determine specific features in the looks of criminals, based on their facial structure. The Galton method involves overlaying photographs of people's faces to create a composite image. Physiognomy, which attempts to connect a person's character with their external appearance, has been a topic of interest for humanity since ancient times. However, it has little to do with science. A 2014 study analyzed the facial structure of 241 UFC members and found that those with wider faces in the middle were more successful fighters. According to a February article in the New Scientist journal, physiognomy is experiencing a small resurgence. Research on 90 hockey players has revealed a statistically significant correlation between a broader face and the number of penalty minutes received for domestic acts against other players. The researchers have used machine learning to understand that facial features can predict not only aggressive tendencies, but also political orientation with an accuracy of 72%. Francis Galton, who developed the technique of composite portraiture, is renowned for his numerous achievements. He was a researcher, geographer, anthropologist, sociologist, meteorologist, protogeneticist, statistician, and the founder of differential psychology and psychometrics. Interestingly, he was also the cousin of Charles Darwin. The combination of these two geniuses, who have had a profound impact on the course of human history, is remarkable. 1944, 74 years to the point of no return. Erwin Schrödinger, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist and one of the founders of quantum mechanics, published his science-popular book, What is Life? Schrödinger is well known for his work on the Schrödinger's cat paradox, which he developed as a counterbalance to the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. Schrödinger's book makes a significant theoretical prediction that a periodic crystal is the physical source of information in nature. This molecule differs from a typical crystal in that it does not repeat. At the time, there was insufficient experimental data to confirm that this was DNA, and the mechanism by which parental properties were inherited remained unclear. Schrödinger proposed that the periodic nature of the crystal, which held the source of the information, allowed for the coding of an infinite number of possibilities with only a small number of atoms. After discovering the consequences, Francis Crick and James Watson proved this statement by revealing the structure of DNA, which earned them the Nobel Prize. It is noteworthy that both scientists cited the book, What is Life, as a source of inspiration for their initial research. Despite its complexity, DNA is a remarkably stable molecule that can withstand high temperatures and remain intact on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. The oldest known DNA, which is approximately 2 million years old, has been preserved in encyclopedias. DNA is present in all forms of life on Earth, except for some viruses. It serves as the main code of life on the planet, dictating how organisms grow and develop. It contains information on physical characteristics, such as height, skin color, hair and eye color, muscle strength, bone density, and metabolism. DNA can be thought of as a tape with instructions that code for the building blocks of an organism. The DNA is not divided into separate fragments, each of which would be a separate sign. Although there is no uniginal gene that determines the length of the nose, some diseases occur due to mutations in one of the genes. We have a genetic code that determines the development, structure, and functions of the brain. However, some people believe that genetics has no relation to psychology. I was inspired to create this video by the book Blueprint by Robert Plomin, published in 2018. The book explores how DNA shapes who we are. Plomin spent over 30 years writing this book, which is the culmination of his life's work. It is important to note that Plomin is a highly respected American-British psychologist and geneticist, with a significant contribution to the study of twins and genetic behaviors. In a 2002 review of the Journal of General Psychology, Plomin was ranked 70th among the most cited psychologists of the 20th century. He was also included in the list of the 100 most famous psychologists in the history of science. Although the book was an immediate bestseller, the question remains, should we actually record this video? For instance, the work of Plomin caused an aggressive reaction among some American scientists, leading the author to leave Pennsylvania University for England. However, I do not find any issues with Plomino's work. In science, we must sometimes confront inconvenient truths because science simply tells us what is, not what should be. This book challenges your ideas about your experiences, skills, and life in general. It presents information that may turn your perspective upside down. It is up to you to decide what to do with this information. While watching this video, some viewers may experience discomfort or even anger. However, the content presented aims to provide answers and potentially ease some of these feelings. In 1961, 57 years before the point of no return, a rare phenomenon occurred in which monozygotic triplets were born, essentially cloning each other and sharing the same DNA. When the mother heard the news, she immediately refused to keep the children, and they were separated into 3 different families. None of the families were aware that the adopted child had 2 biological brothers. Interestingly, the families that adopted the brothers were from different social classes. One brother was placed with a working-class family, another with a middle-class family, and the third with a wealthy family. After 19 years, when brothers finally reunite, they may discover that they share similar manners, habits, tastes, and temperament. They may have even dated the same girls and smoked the same cigarettes. Additionally, all 3 brothers had a limited perspective and struggled with mental health issues. After retirement, the boys were visited by specialists at least 4 times a year. As they grew older, the meetings were reduced to tests of their cognitive ability, and all meetings were recorded on camera. This has been going on for over 10 years. The visits of the specialists were explained as a regular practice during retirement. Later, it became clear that the 3 of them were part of a new research project called the study Nature Against Education, was conducted by psychiatrist Peter Neubauer, who aimed to prove the importance of education. The study included not only the so-called twins Robert, Edward, and David, but also many other children, although the exact number is unknown. The papers related to the study are currently stored at Yeltsin University, but are not accessible until October 25, 2065. The main issue addressed in the study is the biology of society. The main issue is the balance between the 2 competing factors that determine fate: genetics and environment. The question of what defines a person the most remains. Is it the genetic code written in their cells, or the experiences they face throughout life? Can a person become who they are, or are they restricted by their DNA, which is present in every cell of their body? At the beginning of the 20th century, psychology emerged as a new science. Its foundation was based on the idea that humans are malleable and can be shaped. The importance of childhood education was emphasized. These theses have dominated psychology for decades, starting with Freud. The education of a family was considered a key factor in determining one's identity. However, it is important to note that this approach has had negative consequences, such as the concept of a schizophrenogenic mother. This concept suggests that a child's development of schizophrenia is caused by a bad relationship with their mother. Prior to the 1960s, when a person was diagnosed with schizophrenia, it was often attributed to insufficient attention and warmth from their mother. However, with the advent of genetic research, the perspective that the environment was solely responsible for the disorder was proven incorrect. This led to many mothers feeling guilty. Psychogenetic studies have demonstrated that schizophrenia cannot be induced in a non-predisposed individual. The identification of genetic diseases is aided by twin studies and the examination of pre-adolescent children. We take a pair of identical twins who share 100% of their DNA and a pair of fraternal twins who share 50% of their DNA like regular siblings. We then compare the likelihood of the same disease manifestation between the 2 pairs. Environmental and educational influences are not considered, as the siblings live in the same conditions. In the case of schizophrenia, research has shown that if an individual has a sibling with the illness who is their genetic clone, they have a 50% chance of also being affected. If both siblings are twins, the risk of developing the illness is no more than 15%. If you have a sibling with schizophrenia, your likelihood of developing the condition is not dependent on shared upbringing or genetics. The project, which cost at least $3 billion in the U.S., marked the beginning of one of the most significant scientific endeavors in history. In 1990, The Genome of a Human project began with the ambitious goal of sequencing the entire human DNA. In 2003, 85% of the genome was sequenced. Despite our differences, both internally and in nature, about 99% of the 3 billion steps in the DNA sequence are identical between individuals. However, this also means that there are approximately 30 million steps that differ between any two individuals. It is widely accepted that our environment plays a significant role in shaping who we are. However, few individuals comprehend the significance of the variations in DNA. Robert Plomin's main argument in his book, which he reiterates numerous times, is that the sole source of systemic and psychological differences among individuals is not the environment, but rather their DNA. He added that the environment's influence is also significant. It is important to note that subjective evaluations have been excluded from this analysis. However, recent years have shown that the environment's impact is unstable and almost unsystematic, meaning it cannot be measured. For instance, if your parents hit a child in their early days, you cannot predict with certainty whether they will hit your child in the future. One perspective may argue against the possibility, while the other may support it. On this newly registered channel, I witnessed a video featuring a Chinese biologist and biophysicist named Hetsin Kui. In the video, he discusses the birth of two genetically modified girls named Lulu and Nana, who were born healthy. These girls are the first genetically modified people in the world. They are supposedly immune to HIV. The experiment was conducted until November 2018. Hetsin Kui announced the results of his experiment, not through a publication in a scientific journal, but through a video on YouTube. It is thanks to this video that the whole world has learned that, in the process of evolution lasting 4 billion years, intervened at the level of nature, which makes us what we are. The news immediately spread across the planet, causing outrage in the scientific community. After a month, Hetsin Kui was featured in the Nature journal as one of a dozen people per year. However, he was found to have consciously and directly manipulated the language of nature, resulting in his removal from the project at the university where he worked. The Chinese authorities subsequently launched an investigation. Hetsin Kui was later sentenced to 3 years of imprisonment and fined 3 million yuan, approximately $500,000. The question remains, why? However, the main secret of this project will remain undisclosed. It is important to note that any discussion of genetic improvement of humans should be approached with caution and objectivity. According to Start News, the Chinese government conducted an experiment using public funds. The government used the experiment as a way to alleviate concerns about their participation in global affairs. This version, to me, at least, is a bit strange. But you can't even imagine the amount of benefits in all of the areas that potentially receive countries, secretly or clearly, doing amoral genetic experiments. You just can't imagine. Soon after the incident with Hetsin Kui, one of the creators of technology CRISPR, Jennifer Doudna, in response to the question of journalists about whether it was worth putting a moratorium on the editing of embryons of a human, answered too late. What are the implications of human gene modification, which has already begun and is not subject to ethical committees? It is important to consider that any genetic changes will be passed down through generations. These topics will be explored further in the following video.